afternoon and welcome to Our World, Our Power. Here with Lady Pauline and my co host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Southern Boulevard. Today we have a special guest, Senator John Lieu from the 11th District. Welcome, Senator, to our
Great to see you,
world.
Lady
How
Pauline.
are you
Great to
today?
be on the Hour of Power.
I think you may
All
be on
right.
mute.
So, uh,
Somebody's on
tell
mute.
us a, tell us a little bit about what's the difference between being the controller and a state senator. How has that impacted your life, your political life?
Uh, Thank you very much, Glenn. Well, it is rather different. Being as the city comptroller, it's a citywide position, so there are lots of issues to grapple with that affect all 8.5 million people of New York City. And I find myself having to address problems as well as attend meetings from all throughout the five boroughs. It is a very large office, over 700 people, professionals who work in the comptroller's office. And many of the issues are fiscal issues that have to do with the way city money is spent, the way agencies operate and function, and things like how to invest the New York City pension funds, which at this point is about $200 billion. So financial in nature, but I always made it a point when I was comptroller to say that it's not just about numbers and the money; it's about people at the end of the day. And so I tried to make sure that the people were always at the bottom line. But it has been a real privilege for 2.5 years now to be a member of the state senate. It is it is different because number one, uh, uh, being a state senator is being a legislator. So as opposed to being city comptroller, which is kind of quasi executive, the being a state senator is clearly in the judicial branch of state government. I'm sorry, the legislative branch of judicial government. So it's about being a lawmaker. It's about most importantly collaborating with all of the other members of the state senate, where no one senator can do anything really without the support of colleagues, and also working with members of the state assembly, because as you know, any bill that could become law, it first has to pass both houses, both the Senate and the Assembly, and then signed or at least not vetoed by the governor. So it's being a state senator is much more collaborative, and it's about writing laws as well as overseeing agencies, usually state agencies, but we also have some oversight over city agencies. But
Okay,
I would
that's
emphasize. Okay, go ahead, Lady Pauline. I don't mean to drone on.
Nah, that's okay. No, I know we're short for time, but I wanted to speak to you about the Asian community and
Hmm.
what's been going on in the last couple of months with the attacks and so forth. And I would like your take on it and as to what can we all do as part of the community to make this go away, make this better, solve the issues.
Thank you so much for asking about that. I really appreciate the hour power, you, Lady Pauline, and Glenn, and our producer Joe Swift. I know you've been trying to coordinate something with my office for I think a couple of months now. I'm so happy I'm finally able to make it on with you. The Asian American community, as you know, has been dealing with, I wouldn't even call it an increase, it's an absolute onslaught of anti Asian hate. It has been extremely pronounced over the last couple of months, especially when people saw the killing spree in Atlanta. But it's been like a year and a half now where the Asian American community has faced not only COVID-19 like everybody else, but we've had to deal with this secondary virus of hate and bigotry, not coincidentally timed along with the coronavirus. hate and bigotry, I always feel, is rooted in fear and ignorance. And there has been a lot of fear because, people dying. So many millions of people around the world, tens of thousands of fellow New Yorkers have died. Families are suffering. And on top of that, the economic turmoil, the economic insecurity that so many people have felt, job loss as well as loss of income. So there's a lot of fear, and combine that with ignorance that exists because unfortunately there's not a whole lot people really understand about the Asian American experience, our history in this country, and the contributions, and so on top of all that fear and ignorance, then you have 45, the former president, continuously against the advice of community advocates as well as his own public health professionals, asking him, counseling him not to use ethnic terms to describe the virus. He kept calling it the China virus or the
Correct.
Kung flu, which is now like a new anti-Asian slur that we all recognize. So uh, all of that, all the confluence of all that really created a situation where we just have seen so many vicious, vile, and often violent incidents against Asian Americans. Everything from stupid little comments like "Don't sit next to me, I don't want to get COVID," to "Why don't you go back where you came from," to shovings and slashings of Asian Americans, and the Atlanta killing spree. We saw so many videos of Asian American women just being sucker punched out of the blue. We saw one woman kicked to the ground, and literally the attacker stomped on her head. You could see her head bouncing off the pavement. And when in the video you saw somebody come to the door to possibly assist her, the person simply closed the door on her. So it's been the viciousness of this has been really heartbreaking.
Yeah, I
But
found it very appalling myself when I watched that video, and we all at some point have come from another country to America, so I'm really, it was appalling seeing it because African Americans we always talk about the discrimination and how hard we have had it in this country up to this day with people discriminating against us. And when I saw that, it just like it got to my heart. It went to my heart to say, "Oh my God, how can you do that when we are also talking about, black and brown, we're not, being respected. Now you're turning the table, you know, onto somebody else's anger." And that I found very devastating. And I spoke to Glenn about it, and I says, how can we, as the media, impact how people think in a positive way, you know? And that's why I wanted to have you on the show to talk about how can we work together, part of the community, and as individuals, to so that this doesn't happen, or people can be more aware of certain ideas and so forth. So
yeah, well, Lady Pauline, I truly appreciate your comments there, and this is absolutely one of the necessary ways to combat the anti-Asian hate or any kind of racism and bigotry, to talk about it and not sweep things under the rug, to address the issues head on. And that's precisely what you're doing with this program, to air the issues, help people understand. And that's how we overcome the ignorance. Without ignorance, there will be no bigotry and racism. I do believe that to the core, that really it's rooted in the fact that some people don't understand what others may be about. Now, I will say that number one, the actions of a few in no way describe an entire community. And we have seen attackers who are Black, African American, no question. But we have seen attackers from every other race as well. And so I don't see any correlation between the attackers and any particular race pattern among the attackers. Number one. Number two, the showing of support, the outpouring of support from the African American community towards the Asian American community has been just, I mean, if anything could be a silver lining in all the attacks that we Asian Americans have faced this past year and change, it is the fact that that silver lining would be the immense outpouring of support from the African American community, from really all communities, because I have attended so many rallies and support and protests in support of the Asian American community, who which were not organized by Asian Americans and were largely attended by people who happen not to be Asian Americans.
Yes.
And you know, our world is a media program for all, but many of the guest speakers are important African Americans. And you talk about economic issues, issues of health, issues of housing that are very important, particularly to the African American community. So to have a program dedicated to addressing the problems and the challenges of the Asian American community, I mean, I feel that I feel great about that. I wish, don't get me wrong, I wish we wouldn't have to have any of these discussions, that people weren't being assaulted and discriminated against. But I'm just so
I know.
thankful that you're doing this, and that's the silver lining.
Okay.
We're going to take a
Go,
station break right now. We'll be right back with Senator John Lieu.
Worried your friend's struggling but don't know how to reach out?
You could say how are you or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could write them a text or knit them a sweater. If you can't be together, you could write them a letter. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking. You could chat on the game, kick off your flip-flops. You could ask on your couch while you binge watch. However you do it, you gotta ask a friend. And if they don't share, you can ask again. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking.
There are a lot of ways to reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job.
I need a new career.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
I've been there. I wasn't happy with what I was doing.
After high school, I didn't have a plan.
I just wanted to start working.
I got laid off twice, but you gotta keep
You
going.
just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a 2-year IT program.
I found a medical course online.
I'm now a consultant in the tech space.
You have more options than you think. You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
with Senator John Lieu. Senator, I want to ask you a question. How can we as media help? I know Glenn is with the Southern Bed, and he has a program called, what's it called again? No Hate?
Hate has no business here.
Right.
And if you would like to do a rally on Sutphen Boulevard, I will work it out with your campaign, your back office, and certainly would love to do a campaign there. But I also want to find out a little bit. So I'll let you answer the first question, which is how the media can help you. And then I also want to talk about the small businesses that have been affected in the Asian community out of this as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Glenn. The media can absolutely help, whether it be through this program or other media outlets. I have encouraged media to have some shows or pieces about the Asian American community or about Asian Americans, and not just related to COVID-19 and the anti-Asian attacks. It's There are lots of good stories to have about Asian Americans in New York and all over. So that having those kinds of programs would help undercut the root of that racism, undercut the ignorance, show more Asian Americans, and therefore people can learn about it, and understand the Asian American community better. And as far as the Asian American small businesses, yeah, many of them have just been shuttered. The Asian American community, particularly the small businesses, unfortunately, were among the first to be hit hard with COVID as early as January 2020, when we had not yet comprehended the full magnitude of this deadly virus the human race was up against. When the news of COVID started hitting us right here in New York, many Asian American businesses were basically boycotted. Not maybe not necessarily out of malice, but just the thought that, well, people didn't want to get COVID, and if somehow they went to a Chinese restaurant or an Asian-owned business, that they'd be more susceptible to the virus, and so people stopped going, and that resulted in Chinatown in Manhattan being almost completely shut down, businesses in Flushing shutting down. I mean, I I live in Flushing, and I've lived here my whole life, and I have never seen everything just shut. No activity whatsoever on Main Street in Flushing. And other Asian American communities in Brooklyn, like Sunset Park and Bensonhurst, and it was really, very traumatic. And that was before any official pronouncements of social distancing, mask wearing, and staying at home. That didn't happen until March, mid to end of March. Schools went to complete remote learning on March 16th, and soon thereafter, businesses were shut down. Basically because people were being told to stay home. But the Asian American small businesses were decimated in January, a full 2 months before. And by the way, at the end of January is also the Asian Lunar New Year's,
That's
which,
true.
you know, yeah, the few weeks in advance of and the few weeks following the Asian Lunar New Year, that is, I would say, that's where the bulk of businesses that Asian American businesses do for the entire year are actually had. So it dealt a death blow to many small businesses in the Asian American community. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has dealt a death blow to so many businesses in the African American community as well. And this is something that, as a legislator in Albany, I and my colleagues have been working on programs to help small business owners, supplementing what the federal government has already tried to do through its PPP program.
Well, Senator, me and Glenn, we want to do something. And I'm a person, when I think of something, I always follow it through. I would like to advertise one or two of the businesses in the Asian community for free, okay, and help you all get back on your feet. I mean, that's the least I can do. I believe in always helping people, and I have the capability of doing it, and I would like to, give that opportunity to the community, you know.
This This is exactly the silver lining I'm talking about, Lady Pauline. Your generosity of spirit, and I mean, it really means a lot. It means more than you can imagine. So my office will certainly help you
Okay.
identify those businesses. Yeah,
Yeah, I would love to. Me and Glenn would love to do it, and,
Absolutely.
thank you.
you know, Glenn.
Senator, one of the things that goes back to my childhood is, Bruce Lee and his impact. I know that you're a martial artist, but I remember the days when Bruce Lee came to the big screen, and um, I don't know about your neighborhood, but everybody in my neighborhood had nunchucks and were trying to play it, practice it, and so for me, there's always been an affinity with the Asian community, and and I'm hoping that we can get back to that kind of affinity, that kind of love, that kind of partnership.
Glenn, I'm not sure what to say. First of all, I am not a martial artist. I don't know anything about martial arts. I'm a lover, not a fighter, Glenn. But my brother actually, he was a big fan of Bruce Lee, as was I. But my brother tried to emulate him with the nunchucks. So I remember all the holes in the ceiling of the home that I was growing up in because those nunchucks they get a little crazy, if you know what I mean.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Uh,
they do. Yes, they do.
and but if that's another thing that can bring communities together, that would be truly awesome. I mean, as I said before, the African American community came out in such large numbers and great magnitude to show support to our community. Just like I was so proud that many Asian Americans took part in the BLM protests around the city and around the country last June. And the African American community and the Asian American community, we have so much in common, common struggles. You mentioned earlier that we have to remind. You said you had to remind people, particularly, I think you were referring to the African American community, that other communities face difficulties too, and it's not just the African American community. As an Asian American, I always tell my fellow Asian Americans that yeah, we have difficulties. We don't have the kinds of difficulties or the level of injustice that the Black community has faced for a really long time. So we can complain about the injustices that we face, but never forget the injustices that the African American community has faced and continue to face. And in fact, if not for the civil rights movement, which was led by the African American community in this country, Asian Americans, we would not have what we have today, whether it be small businesses or even coming to this country with the lifting of the really onerous immigration restrictions in prior to the 1960s. So there's just so much we can do together, and you know, um, world beware when our communities come together in a united front.
Okay, that sounds great. Now, I would like to ask you, I know you can't stay too long, but I would like to ask you, what haven't you done in your career that you would like to do?
Well, I haven't practiced nunchucks, that's for sure. Um, I took a shot, as you may recall, to become mayor of New York City in 2013.
I
That didn't
voted
work
for
out too
you.
well.
I voted for
Thank
you.
you, bless you, Glenn,
Yes.
bless you. So that's something that being mayor of New York City is something that I haven't done yet. But look, there's still so much to look forward to in the future. We all stand to do far, far more if we continue to understand what the issues are, what the remaining challenges continue to be, and the strengths that we as individual people can bring to the fight, can bring to the challenge. So I always encourage people no matter what their walk of life is or what their experience has been, to set your mind, set some goals about how to make an impact in our community, whether it be to have a food drive and collect some cans and bring them to the a local pantry, or to uh, tutor some kids in schools and after school programs, or to even hold a rally in support of any particular issue, whether it be anti-Asian hate or a Black Lives Matter rally, or some kind of rally in support of an issue, whether it be local or national or global. Every person can make an impact. And that's what I always remind myself every single day.
Well, I
Well,
agree with you 100%.
Senator John Lieu, it's been an honor and a pleasure. I've been a believer since you've been the comptroller, for your honesty and decency and your perseverance for the details. So I appreciate who you are. And anytime, anything that you need, let us know. We're standing behind you because we know who you are.
Yes, most definitely. And remember what I said, I want to help the businesses out in Flushing or wherever to, we'll do some free ads. You got my word on that. And, let's all work together. I know the Harvest Festival is coming up for September, right, Glenn? For
September
you?
18th, the Sutphin Boulevard Harvest Festival. So if you can, if you're around, would love to have you attend.
I would
Yeah,
love to be there September 18th.
yes, and
Yes,
I would love to interview you again that day because we're gonna be out there, our world, right there in
I
front.
hope I hope our world will let me come back on sometime soon.
All right.
If not before, then September 18th.
Okay, sounds great. I love it. Thank you so much. And how can people reach your office in case they need to speak with you, or how is people able
They
to reach you?
The phone number is 718-675-6675, or I'm sorry, the phone number is 718-765-6675, or just email me. It's liu@nysenate.gov. And
Oh,
I really want to thank you for having me on this program. It was a terrific treat out of all the turmoil that's going on right now.
yes, thank you so much for being on
thank you.
Our World, Our Power. You've been listening to Lady Pauline and Mr. Glenn Greenwich, my honorable mayor of Southern Boulevard. And thank you, Senator John Lieu, for being on Our World. Thank you again.
Thank you, Lady Pauline. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, catch you.
Take care. Bye
All
bye.
right,
Bye
bye
bye.
bye.